Hi, friends. We're going to read A Garden for a Groundhog. This is Greta Groundhog. She's going to join me today. She, because it's spring, is now out of her hole, right? Do you remember back in February when we made our shadow puppets? Because it was around the time when the groundhogs were going to pop out of their ground, see if they could see their shadow. And if they saw their shadow, do you remember what happens? If they see their shadow, then winter sticks around. But if they don't see their shadow, then spring is on its way, right? Well, this year they didn't see their shadow, right? Right, Greta? Right? Yeah, Greta didn't see her shadow. And so now she's out, and it's springtime. Spring is here. It has sprung. Spring has sprung. And Greta really wanted to listen to this story, so a garden for a groundhog. Do you have a garden at home? I don't have a garden at home, partly because I'm not very good at growing things like that, and mainly though because I don't have a lot of sun at my house. My house is kind of shady, which isn't all that great for a garden, is it? Plus, I've got lots of deer, and I would need a big fence. So, I don't have a garden, but I like gardens. So maybe you have a garden at home. Okay? The O'Learys had a bit of a farm. A small cottage for the two of them and their cat, a tiny shed for the goat and lamb and the two chickens, and a tiny little garden with an apple tree. It wasn't much of a farm, but it was big enough, and it belonged to them. Can you tell what season it is by looking at the tree? The tree actually does have apples on it, so that would tell you it might be fall, but it doesn't have many leaves. So I guess that would be fall, right? When it starts losing its leaves and it has apples. Yeah. There was also a groundhog. Hmm? Hmm. Oh, Greta's very curious about that groundhog. Hmm. Hmm. The groundhog didn't belong to anyone, just to himself. He lived in a burrow under the apple tree. Can you tell that he's waving at you? That little groundhog. Mrs. O'Leary spent the winter spinning and knitting and cooking delicious meals from the food they had grown in the garden the summer before. They ate zucchini squash soup with egg dumplings, zucchini bread with goat cheese and pickled beets, zucchini casserole with potatoes, peas, and beans, zucchini salad with yogurt, cabbage, and tomatoes, and zucchini carrot cake. Can you tell what they grow a lot of? Zucchinis. There's some there on the counter, right up here, right by the stove. Zucchinis. I love zucchini bread. Mr. O'Leary spent the winter reading seed catalogs and repairing the garden tools. The cat spent the winter curled up by the wood stove or stretched out on the sunny windowsill. That's what cats are supposed to do. The goat, the lamb, and the chickens spent the winter giving milk, growing wool, and laying eggs. That's what goats, lambs, and chickens are supposed to do. The groundhog spent the winter hibernating in his burrow, and that's what groundhogs are supposed to do. It looks cozy down there. Along about February, we know what happens in February, everyone began feeling restless. Mrs. O'Leary had used up all of the wool. Mr. O'Leary had ordered the garden seeds. The cat dreamed of chasing mice in the field. The goat and the lamb and the chickens longed to kick up their heels in the grass, and the groundhog was feeling twinges of hunger. He hadn't eaten anything all winter. He wasn't supposed to. No, you don't eat while you hibernate, do you? No. Tomorrow is Groundhog Day, said Mr. O'Leary. Oh, we must watch for him in the morning. If he comes out and sees his shadow, it will frighten him, and he will go back to bed. That will mean 6 more weeks of winter. If he doesn't see his shadow, he will stay awake. Then spring will be early, and we can plant our garden sooner. Such foolishness when that groundhog comes out of his hole. It's only to see if we have planted anything yet. After all of our work, he ate more from our garden last summer than we did, said Mrs. O'Leary. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, Greta. Do you sneak into people's gardens? Oh, that's naughty. Oh, she likes being naughty. That's what groundhogs are supposed to do, my dear. They eat all summer so they can sleep all winter. We must allow him some food in exchange for his help in forecasting the weather. I have a plan that will ensure he eats only what we want him to eat this summer, said Mr. O'Leary. Ooh, wonder what that could be, Greta. What is the plan? What is the only thing they want him to eat? What is the thing that they make a lot of, grow a lot of? Yeah, zucchinis. Maybe they're going to make him eat zucchinis. Groundhog Day found Mr. and Mrs. O'Leary watching and waiting under the apple tree. There he comes out. There comes the groundhog. What is he? Oh, are there shadows out? Yeah, there are. In that picture, look at all the shadows of the trees. The groundhog stirred himself and waddled out into the sunshine to see if the O'Leary's garden was planted yet. When he realized it wasn't, he tottered back to bed, just as he was supposed to do. The winter continued, and everybody waited. I know, it takes forever. Eventually, spring arrived, just the way it's supposed to. Mr. and Mrs. O'Leary planted their garden. The cat chased mice, the goat and the lamb and the chickens kicked up their heels in the grass, and the groundhog nibbled alfalfa and dandelions, waiting. What is the groundhog waiting for? Oh, did you hear that? That was a red-winged blackbird. Mr. and Mrs. Leary weeded, watered, and hoed and fussed. That's what gardeners are supposed to do. Beautiful garden you've got going there. The garden grew just as it was supposed to, and it was beautiful. There were plump red tomatoes, sweet, juicy melons, tender peas and beans, crisp carrots, big round cabbages, onions, potatoes, beets, and berries, all for the O'Learys. The zucchini squash was for the groundhog. It says, Groundhog's zucchini. I wonder if the groundhog is going to just eat the zucchini. But groundhogs can't read. They're not supposed to. Did the groundhog just eat the zucchini? No, it's eating everything. Greta. Oh, she doesn't feel too bad about it because she's a groundhog and they're supposed to eat everything. Maybe you will see a groundhog in your garden.